Iran's final retribution, expel U.S. bases or suffocate economically. Flint West reporting. Section 1. Let's start with something simple. In geopolitics, geography always wins. You can have aircraft carriers, you can have stealth bombers, you can have 10,000 troops parked on a runway in the desert. But if you don't control the doorways of trade, sooner or later, the man who does will remind you. And in the Persian Gulf, there is only one doorway that matters: the Strait of Hormuz, 21 miles wide at its narrowest point, 2 shipping lanes, one inbound, one outbound. And through that tiny corridor flows roughly 20% of the world's oil supply, about 20 million barrels per day, along with a massive share of global LNG shipments. Every tanker leaving Saudi Arabia's eastern fields, Kuwait, Qatar, Bahrain, the UAE, and even Iran itself must pass through it. No strait, no exports. But that's only half the story. Because the Gulf states don't just export through Hormuz, they eat through Hormuz. Section 2. The Gulf Cooperation Council, Saudi Arabia, UAE, Qatar, Bahrain, Kuwait, Oman, imports between 70% and 90% of its food. Wheat, rice, cooking oil, animal feed. The deserts don't grow much, and for countries like Qatar and the UAE, over 90% of food consumption is imported, much of it arriving through ports connected directly to the strait. That's not a vulnerability, that's an artery. Now keep that in mind while we look at the other side of the chessboard. Because the United States didn't just wander into the Gulf, it built an architecture of power there. Section 3. Start with Qatar, Al Udeid Air Base, the largest U.S. military installation in the Middle East, roughly 10,000 troops. Forward headquarters of U.S. Central Command's air operations. It's the nerve center for American air power across the region. Then move across the water to Bahrain, home of the U.S. Navy's 5th Fleet. More than 8,000 U.S. personnel overseeing naval operations from the Persian Gulf to the Red Sea and Arabian Sea. If America wants to police the shipping lanes, this is where the orders come from. Now look to the United Arab Emirates, Al Dhafra Air Base, just south of Abu Dhabi, about 3,500 American troops stationed there. Surveillance aircraft, reconnaissance platforms, strategic bombers rotating through. And then Saudi Arabia, Prince Sultan Air Base. More than 2,300 U.S. troops focused heavily on missile defense and air operations. Put those together and you start to see the pattern. These aren't just bases, they're anchors of an American security perimeter across the Arabian Peninsula. For decades, the Gulf monarchies accepted this arrangement. Protection in exchange for presence. American power guaranteed the stability of oil exports, and oil exports guaranteed the prosperity of the Gulf. Everyone got what they wanted, except one country, Iran. This content is brought to you by Bobby Giggs. Promote your brand here and reach a wide audience across platforms like YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook. Follow the links in the description to get started. Section 4. From Tehran's perspective, the map looks very different. To the north, U.S. forces in Turkey. To the west, U.S. troops in Iraq. To the east, American presence in the Gulf. And directly across the water, a chain of U.S. air bases and naval headquarters sitting on Iran's front porch. So when Iran talks about foreign encirclement, this is the picture they're looking at. Now here's where the strategy changes. Because Iran cannot outspend the United States, it cannot outbuild the United States, and it certainly cannot outcarrier the United States. But Iran doesn't need to, because Iran controls the narrowest point of the Gulf's economic lifeline, and that changes the math. Think about it this way. The United States can dominate the sky. Iran can threaten the doorway. And that doorway controls 2 things the Gulf cannot live without: energy exports and food imports. Section 5. If the strait closes, even partially, the effects ripple instantly. Shipping insurance skyrockets, tankers turn around, ports slow down. Within weeks, economies begin to feel it. Oil markets panic. Food prices spike. Supply chains begin to strain. And the Gulf states suddenly face a terrifying question. How long can highly urbanized, import-dependent economies function if their maritime lifeline is under threat? That's the leverage. Not necessarily closing the strait, but making it dangerous enough that everyone feels the pressure. Which brings us to the strategic ultimatum hiding beneath the surface of this entire confrontation. Because if Iran ever emerges from a major confrontation with the United States intact, politically, militarily, economically, the next move is obvious. not invasion, not occupation, pressure, relentless strategic pressure, directed at the Gulf states that host American bases. Section 6. The message would be simple. You made a choice decades ago. You chose American protection. You chose American bases. You chose to host the infrastructure of the power that threatens us. Now make another choice. Expel the bases. Or accept the permanent risk that the Strait of Hormuz, the narrow passage through which your economies breathe, may never again be fully secure. Boot the bases? Or choke on the strait? That's the real balance of power in the Gulf. America controls the airfields, fleets, and radar networks. Iran controls the geography. And geography has a funny habit of outlasting empires. Because at the end of the day, the Persian Gulf is governed by a simple equation. America's strength lies in its bases. Iran's strength lies in the doorway. And that doorway is called Hormuz. Flint West signing off.